Imagine you're on a journey somewhere far, far away, and you're all alone. All of a sudden, somebody tries to rob you. But being the quick thinker that you are, you jump off your wagon and tackle him. So after a little bit of a spin in the mud, he takes off on horseback. A few days later, he ends up being caught and arrested in the local town. Now to you, that might seem the end of the story. That might be the end of the road. All's well that ends well, bye-bye. Except it's not, because a few years later, you receive a knock at the door. But upon opening it, there's nobody there. You look left, you look right, you look up, you look down, you look behind you, nothing. But then you look down again, and there's a small rectangle wrapped in a brown paper bag. Picking it up, you feel at the creases, you feel at the edge, and you realize that it's a book. So you unwrap it, eager, so excited. It's your Amazon package, but it's not. Because the author is the very man that attempted to rob you only a few years ago. What's worse is that you start recognizing that it's a memoir. So this man that robbed you, he sent you his memoir. But it turns out it's bound in human flesh. That's right, this video we'll be diving, or I guess flipping through the pages of the really weird history of books that are actually bound in actual, real, legitimate human skin. Anthropodermic bibliophagy. I have absolutely no clue if I pronounced that right, but we're just gonna go with it because it's just the sciencey terms used to describe the act of a book being bound in human skin. And believe it or not, something that really surprised me is that the scientific verification of seeing if these books are bound in real human skin, it's actually very recent. Like, this science was only developed in, I think, 2014. Around this time, there were already a lot of books throughout the world that people had claimed to be made out of human skin. But it was very convenient that Harvard submitted one of their own books in 2014 for formal testing. And the only reason why they chose this book was just because it was already on a public display in the library. And conveniently, it actually had a note written inside of the cover that said it was bound in human skin. So they were like, why not? You know, they're developing the science, let's give it a test subject. So they sent in their book and it actually turned out to be bound in 100% human skin. The organization that pioneered this science is called the Anthropodermic Project. But after the Harvard book proved to be true, the organization, they decided that they needed to reach out and they needed to expand this project. They wanted to get their grubby fingers on as many books as possible so they can do as much testing as possible. In the end, they actually came out with a surprisingly small amount of books because in 2024, their total count at the moment was like 18 of them. And they actually have a whole website. It's linked in the description. I'll also put like a little bit of it right here so you can see like the statistics. But so yeah, it's really great. They have the number of books that are confirmed human. They have the number of books that are in testing. But that doesn't answer our question. But we didn't really ask the question. So let's ask it. Why human? Why were these books bound in human flesh? Of all the fleshes in the world, of all the different animals and things and insects, whatever, why humans? Let's find out. I'm going to be incredibly honest here. Of the 18 books so far that have been confirmed, they are incredibly boring because most of them fall into a medical category like anatomy or surgery, and then the rest of them are basically miscellaneous medical topics. But of the very few interesting ones, there happens to be, believe it or not, an erotic poem. And okay, it is argued a lot by like historians and literature peoples and whatever. They all say like, no, it's not erotic, and the others are like, yes, it is. No, yes. I think it is. Okay, the themes are literally about desire, pain, submission. So I don't know what to think of that. Clearly this author was just very passionate about his feelings and his emotions. Definitely nothing weird. However, the most popular one, the coolest one, and the one I alluded to in the very beginning of this video would be a memoir written by James Allen. And I'm sure nobody knows that name. James Allen, who is that? He was a highwayman. So back in the 1800s, Allen was on his way prowling about, robbing people and looting and stealing and whatever it was, until he came across one man. And this man had guts. This man was named John Fino, and he literally did what I guess any normal person would do, and was just resist being robbed. But because of this, James Allen admired this guy so much so that he wrote him a book, a memoir even. This book was written in 1837, and it was called The Narrative of the Life of James Allen. And as one can expect in a memoir, it just discusses his life, his imprisonment, his robberies, and even some of his reflections right before he died. But the best part isn't in the contents, it's what's outside of the content. So John Freno, all he did was physically resist Allen. He was just like, I don't want you to rob me. If you try to rob me, I will try to kill you. That's it. So Allen gets on his little horsey, rides away into the sunset, and then is captured. Years later, he writes this book. This book is received by John Freno, and the reason for that is because inside of this book, James Allen, guess what he said? He said he dedicates this memoir to John Freno. He was so impressed with Freno. He admired the man so much that he wrote a book dedicated to him, and then went a step further and said, please bind this in my skin. And so he eventually died, not by like execution or anything. He like got sick or something. I don't really remember, but he ended up passing away in prison. And believe it or not, I mean, obviously it's true because we're sitting here talking about it, but the prisoner guards or whatever, whoever they were, they honored his wish, and they took his skin and bound the book in it and then gave it to Freno. The final book we'll discuss was not made as a gift, but rather as a punishment. The year is 1827, and though they do not know it yet, Britain is about to experience one of its biggest true crime stories. You see, a man named William Porter, he decides he wants to celebrate a big night of cheating on his wife, so he calls up his mistress to have her meet him in the barn. Maria Martin, she's so excited. She caught the affections of a married man. So she shows up to this barn. She expects that maybe they'll run away together, except they don't. He actually ends up shooting and killing her, and then just leaving her body right there in the barn. Afterwards, he's on the run, he's moving from city to city, yet he's still sending letters to Maria Martin's family, acting like she's still alive and that they're together and that they've just run away to be in love. It wasn't soon that they realized it was all just a bluff, and he was caught. Now, there was a lot of people following this story. Like I said, it absolutely swept the nation, so much so that when he was caught, he was executed right in the square. They hanged him in front of everybody. But his punishment didn't stop there, because when they were done hanging him and they knew he was dead, they peeled his flesh off, and they took the documents from the actual trial, his very own court trial, and they wrapped the documents in his flesh. From freaky erotic poems to the Confessions of a Highwayman, these human-bound books are curious in more ways than one. Like, it's already weird enough that it's bound in human skin, but it actually has to be erotic and freaky and weird and strange. But far be it from me, an amateur historian, to judge. If you're interested in learning more topics like this, please let me know in the comments, because I would love to make videos on your guys' suggestions. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, definitely check out my description, because I have dropped some links there that I used when I was researching this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, I love you. You're incredible. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, when you die, would you like your skin to be bound in a book?